In this video, I'm going to show you the difference between using basic and advanced blocks within the WordPress editor. My name is Maestro Stevens, the Fresh Prince of WordPress. Welcome to the Iconic Templates YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to helping you build a WordPress ecosystem through useful tips, tutorials, and resources. Advanced blocks is really just a term that I use for third-party block-based plugins. Some of you all may use a different term, but this is just the term that I use. What are advanced blocks? As I mentioned, they are third-party, non-core Gutenberg blocks with advanced settings and functionalities. These WordPress blocks come from plugins typically, right? Now let's talk about some pros versus cons when using advanced blocks. Let's start with the pros. So the pros of using advanced blocks or third-party block-based plugins are you save time and money. It gives a better page builder-like experience. And the reason why is because when you're using the core-based blocks, you only have so many type of settings that make you feel like you're using something like Elementor or Divi or Beaver Builder. They also allow for more content flexibility, right? They introduce more settings functionalities. You can create block setting defaults. You're able to add styling advantages when you pair them with themes. So for instance, I'm gonna show you an example of advanced blocks using a plugin or one of my favorite block-based plugins called Cadence. And when you pair Cadence blocks with Cadence theme, you get some more styling functionalities, right? Same thing with if you're using Spectra and you're using Astra. And you're also able to add dynamic content functionality. And some advanced blocks or third-party blocks, you can feature page-specific scripts. I know that is a feature in Cadence Blocks Pro. Now let's talk about some of the cons of using advanced blocks or third-party block-based plugins. The website could break if the block plugin isn't installed or it has issues. So this is something that a lot of people get upset with when it comes to plugins on WordPress, whereas one plugin breaks, it malfunctions, it has a bad update, and that's gonna go into the next part, but it has a bad update, and all of a sudden your whole site is messed up, right? You have to be aware of that. Maintaining plugin updates can sometimes be a pain in the butt or buttocks or gluteus maximus. But the good thing is that if you're using a really well-developed block-based plugin that is backed by a good company, they usually have really good updates. And when something does go wrong, they patch those updates, they fix them very fast. You also can get options overload. So if you are not a fan of a lot of options and you want to keep things super simple, you want to be a plain M&M, right? You might not want to go the direction of using advanced blocks. Staying up to date with new features can become a little tedious or cumbersome, even annoying sometimes, because they're always going to want to update and upgrade to what's happening in the market. You know, they want to be reflective of what people's needs are. So it's something that, yeah, WordPress core blocks have updates as well, but their updates are typically not as fast as third-party block-based plugins. And then you have the costs for premium features, right? We all know that when people think of WordPress, they typically think of WordPress as a free or a cheap solution because you can just go on the WordPress repo and then you can just download and install any kind of plugin really that you want. It's like a kid in a candy store. That's the way that I always associate it with. It's like you go in a candy store, it's like, ooh, all this candy, ooh, all this candy. What do I get? What do I get? Woo! And then you just pick a whole bunch of stuff. Next thing you know, your website is bloated. So, or you have to go to the dentist and fill up them cavities. Yeah, the costs for premium features is something that I know some people kind of frown upon because everybody doesn't want to use a premium or professional version of the plugin. I always advocate for using a premium or professional version of the plugin if it's worth it, but there's going to be a cost to it. I created this spreadsheet here just to give a fundamental indication of some of my favorite block-based plugins and some of the most popular ones as well, just so you can see how they would be compared into the kind of, we'll say, block categories, right? You know, the different content format types that you would need. Cadence, as I mentioned, is one of my favorite ones. That's the reason why I have the free versus the pro version on here. Then you have Stackable. Then you have Spectra. We have Generate Blocks. And then you have the WordPress core blocks right here. And you can see here when I have the X, that this is tied to the block category. And it's just something that you want to keep in mind because some blocks call the same thing something different. And sometimes they do the opposite. You know, they call something different, which is very typically the same thing in something else. And you just have to be aware of that. It's just a kind of a naming structure or a development preference, I guess, but it's just something for you to be aware of. You can take a snapshot of this video, of this table here, and just kind of use this for your own needs. Now let's get into it. I'm actually going to dive into the WordPress editor, but I definitely wanted to just do some screenshots just to quickly show you a quick comparison between the two side by side. And I'm only going to show a few different block-based categories because this video would be forever if I didn't cut it off at a certain point. But I want to start with some of the most popular ones that are used in WordPress, and especially in WordPress core. We have the paragraph block. And when using Cadence, this is what you see here on the right side. Cadence has an advanced text block that you can do multiple things with. You can use it to do your typical paragraph, your body text, right? But you can also do other things with this particular block, with this advanced block. Let's show you here on the back end of WordPress. Let's get into the WordPress editor. Here we're in WordPress. I'm using the WordPress editor for those of you all who are very new to WordPress. For those of you all who are used to this is nothing new to you. On the right-hand side, you can see the settings from the block that I'm using. This is the paragraph block here. Now, if I were to add the advanced text block, let's add the advanced text block. I'm just going to click it here. You can see that on the right side here, the settings have changed. Now, at the current time of this video, I'm using Cadence Blocks 3.0.1, which is in beta currently. But by the time you watch this video, or very soon after I release this video, this is going to be the standard. So if you are watching this video right now and you download Cadence Blocks, you're not going to see this settings, but I felt like, well, it's so soon before they actually upgrade to Cadence 3.0. So that's the reason why I wanted to just show you what that looks like here. And what you see over here is you see these different panels. You have the general settings here. You have your styling settings, and then you have your advanced settings. Now, I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of rocket science of the WordPress development engineering world because that's not who I am, and that's not why you watch these videos. That's not what we're here for. I just want you to see from a simplistic standpoint, this is what the regular paragraph block looks like. So you have the paragraph block right here, and then you have Cadence's advanced text block. So you can see on the right side, the block settings change. And with the paragraph block, you only get a few settings. You don't really get that many settings with the core block from WordPress, the core paragraph block, but you do get a few more settings when you're using an advanced block, right? A third-party block-based plugin, something like Cadence. All right, now, when it comes to the heading block, and this is what I just referred to earlier, the heading block is another paragraph block type of block, I guess. It's another text type of block. That's a better way to say it, right? The paragraph block is a text-based block. The heading block is a text-based block. But with Cadence, you don't need to have two different blocks for this. And with other third-party block-based plugins, you don't need to have two different blocks for this, right? For when it comes to advanced blocks. You see here that the heading block, we have these settings, and the same settings we have for the advanced text block. Let me look for the heading block here, and I'm just going to click this, and we can see this is the settings for the heading block. This is, again, the core WordPress block when you're doing headings. Then when I go here, we have the paragraph block. So you can see there is similarities, but they are also slightly different. But they're dramatically different when you are looking at an advanced block right here. Again, just something for you to understand and be aware of when it comes to your text. For images, right? And this is something that's very important because we all use images for the most part. Should I say we all use images? I don't really know if everybody. I would say 99.9% of people use images on their website. And when it comes to images, I want the most flexibility that I can get because an image can be worth 1,000 words. I don't know how that saying goes, but I'm hoping I'm getting close to it. All right, so let's go to the image right here. I'm going to type image, and we're going to click on the image block here. And then I'm going to also click on the advanced image block. Here we have the image block here, and I'm going to add an image from the media library. Let's add this papaya. I like an apple pie. Is it apple pie? I don't know. It's either peach or apple. All right, we added this image block here. And with this image block, you can see there are some settings. We can change the image size, some of the width, and do some, we'll say, pre-made widths or sizes right here. Pre-made sizing, not width, right? Size. And that's really all you got. You can do rounded, great, and that's cool. But I'm a person who wants a little more flexibility. Let's go with the advanced image. And let's add, instead of the piece of pie, let's add the salad. It's really salad, but I'm just trying to be silly here. Let's add the salad. All right, the salad. And now you can see there's way more options, way more settings when it comes to the image. You can use a fixed ratio, max image width here, title attribute, link settings, shadow settings. I'm going to do another video to go deeper into some of these settings, but I just wanted to show you the difference between the two. Max settings, caption, image filter, and that's not all, folks. We still have the style. We also have advanced settings where you can dial in the padding and the margin. And that is huge. I think that that is that's what you want when it comes to your images. When you're thinking of an advanced block, I would think about how much functionality you want when it comes to some of your most favorite and your most used content-based blocks. We often use lists when we're writing blog posts or recipes, or we want to, have some bullet points, right? We want to summarize things. It's a really great. I'm not, a blogging expert, an SEO expert, but lists are really, really good when it comes to SEO and really good when it comes to people scanning things. They want to get to it quickly, right? So we summarize it with a list. This is the list block right here, the WordPress core block for creating a list. And then we have the list block when it comes to a advanced block, right? Again, similar settings when it comes to the general, style, and advanced settings. So let's go into WordPress itself and let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to type in list here. I'm going to click this one, and then I'm going to exit here. I guess I gotta start over, huh? And sometimes this is what, it's not my favorite thing sometimes. Let me unclick that. It just gets stuck sometimes. Oh, goodness. All right, let's get out of that. Let's go, let's click this, and then we're gonna do list this way. Browse all, click list. All right, so I'm going to, let's move this. Can we move this down here? I wanna move this down to the bottom. Nope, you don't want to move. Let's move this down to the bottom. Nope, you don't want to move. Don't want to move down to the bottom. Nope, you don't want to move. Okay, that's good to know. It just doesn't want to move right now. I'm probably just going to leave this in the video, not even edit this out. When it comes to lists, you would write your list here. So I would say, we'll say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get your booty on the floor. Gotta get up, get down. Gotta get up, get down. Only so many people are gonna know about that right there. All right. That's some old school hip hop for you. All right, 1, 2, 3. Boom, bam, bing. We have our list over here, and that's pretty much all you get. Oh, now you want to, well, it will move. See, this is interesting. There we go. And I want you to see these. I'm going to intentionally leave some of these kind of either mistakes, issues, whether it's a bug or whether it's just, something that I did and I just didn't do it the right way, because I want you to get the actual thought process behind me troubleshooting, me figuring something out. A lot of times us content creators, we don't show that. We will edit everything so it's so perfect, and we won't show people how we made the mistakes so that they can reverse engineer what we did. The reason why it wasn't working was because my cursor was clicked within the list itself. When I click a little bit outside the list, now I can drag this and move this. You see that? Something that you definitely want to be aware of. And I can do the same thing. I can move this up and down. This is the list block right here. It's almost just as simple as the paragraph or the heading block. You don't really get too many different features. You don't get too much functionality out of this. But for those of y'all who love simplicity and want something simple, this will do. Now, if you want something a little bit more complex, you want some more functionality, I would use some type of third-party list block, an advanced block for your list. And not just creating a list, but being able to get a little fancy with it. You're able to add icons to it, which is really, really cool. If I wanted to change the icon out, I could. I can select the icon and I can turn this, just for example, to this. You can't add icons to this list. This is not an icon list. This could be a list by itself, just the dots, or you can add icons to it. It's up to you. That's what's really, really cool about using a list from an advanced block versus the core block, because you get to add icons to it. And as usual, more styling. And there's not many advanced features you're going to get out of this one, but you're able to add styling and you're able to add icons to the list and add links to it as well. Spacer. This is another important block that a lot of people use because you're trying to get spacing in between certain paragraphs or certain sections. Now, with this situation, I like using advanced blocks because I'm getting a 2-for-1er, right? Is 2 birds in the bush worth 1 in the hand? Well, in this situation, yes, it is. Because the spacer block in WordPress, it's very simple. So spacer. Oh my. Okay, so this is where I'm going to get out of here. Let's get out of here. All right, boom. Now let's go here. Okay, there we go. Sometimes you got to, with Gutenberg, with the WordPress editor, you got to do a little bit of finagling. It's just a little bit. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but sometimes you got to do it. Let's type in spacer. I'm going to click spacer here, and then I'm going to click spacer here. All right, we have our spacer. This is our regular core spacer. Pretty much all you're able to do is change the height. So if I want to go to 50, I cut it down to 50. But with the spacer/divider block, you're able to choose whether or not you want to add a divider within the spacer. So you can choose how you want to, and it gives you divider height, divider width. You can choose whether you want, dashed or solid, the height of the spacer, right? You're getting a 2-for-1er in this situation. And a lot of us like the BOGO. Buy one, get one free. Think of this as the BOGO of spacers. Now, when it comes to divider or separator, and that's another thing that I want you to keep in mind. Again, sometimes the naming convention or naming structure is going to be a little different than what you would see in another plugin, right? And that's okay. You just have to think and understand this is still the functionality of this thing, this plugin, right? But it's called something different. So when it comes to the separator, let's go here and let's go to the separator. So I'm going to click in an empty space and I'm going to type in separator. Let's separate that. All right, separator. So now we have a separator, and this is what typically would be called a divider. So separator, let me make sure to go here. Oh, no block selected. All right, let's see here. Now this is where I'm going to use my handy dandy list view, and I'm just going to click the separator here. Because you see I was clicking outside of it and it wasn't doing anything. I wanted you to see this is how I troubleshooted. This is how I problem solved. Instead of getting annoyed by continuously clicking on something that's not working, I opened up my list view and I clicked on the block itself from the list view. Now we can see I have the separator, so I can choose whether or not they're dots or if the whole line is in full width. And that is something that you can do within the cadence version of the spacer divider versus having to use these two separately, right? Technically they're divided. But you can have it all in one by using a third-party block-based plugin like this. Now let's move forward to the buttons. And this is another very important block because we typically use buttons to add call to actions, right? When we're not just trying to use a URL link and highlight text, but we want to add a button for more of what we're used to from an aesthetic standpoint, right? They typically stand out more. That's why I'm saying buttons are pretty popular in WordPress. And that's why I like to use advanced buttons because I want more functionality out of my buttons. So don't press my buttons unless you're gonna press my buttons. All right. Did you press that button? Don't press that button. I hope you're still sticking with me now. Don't press that button. Let's hit the button again. So we hit the button. Oops, see, now let me click out of here because it was going to do that thing again. And I want to do that thing. All right, boom. I don't want it to do that thing because I'm about to do that thing. All right, button. So we have our normal core block button. And this button actually does have some good functionality to it. I appreciate that with WordPress, that because there's some core blocks that they have updated and they are continuously updating and they're adding more functionality to it. And I got to give WordPress credit for that. But they're not all the way there yet. And what I mean by that is they don't have the same functionalities that you would get out of an advanced block yet. And that's okay. That's why there are developers and companies that make other options and alternatives for us so that we can have these options, you know, these opportunities. So similar to the other blocks that we used before, we have general, we have style, and then we have advanced. And there's just some really cool things here with cadence. If I can get to it, but I don't think I can get to it because I have this little window thing in the way that you can't see, but I can see it, but it just keeps on popping out. So I'm not even gonna touch the gradient right now because yeah, it's just not worth it. But you can see here that we definitely have some other options. We have a gradient option over here to the right. We have color options. We have shadows. We can add an icon to our button and get settings on that as well. We can add typography, the different type of typography settings to the button. So we have some really good options for our buttons. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, when you are working with certain advanced blocks, right, third-party plugins, you're able to use your theme in tandem with that, and it will inherit or it'll integrate your styling from your theme directly into your buttons. Whether that's your fonts or your colors or etc., you're able to do that when it comes to these third-party block-based plugins, right? These advanced blocks. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I love it. I love it. Now, the next two slides are going to be, I would consider them a little controversial, but that's just me because it's one of those things where there's such differentiation between the naming convention at times where it can get confusing. I guess, I don't know. Did I use that word, differentiation? I don't know. It doesn't matter. This is not supposed to be perfect. But the point is that in this situation, it's kind of a little backwards in my opinion, but I'm sure it's done intentionally or there's a reason behind it. I just don't know because I'm not a developer. Columns are what we use to add content in, right? To add groups of content in. That's usually what we use to organize our content in. And that way we can add our content in this column and then we can move the whole column as we see fit, and it moves all the content in the column. Otherwise, you'll be dragging and dropping everything manually, and you don't want to do that once you have what you like looking nice. I say columns are to row layouts and I'm gonna go forward and I'm gonna go backwards, right? Sometimes you got to take 2 steps forward to go backwards. Sometimes you got to take 5 steps backwards to go forward. Who knows? That's how life is. So columns are to rows as what rows are to sections. I know that probably confused you. Let me break it down for you. Let's go back here and let's do this. And you know what I love about WordPress? Sometimes it's just kind of like I can just start off on a clean slate, right? So I'm going to highlight everything from my list view and I'm going to delete all of this. And then we're starting from a clean slate. Now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to look for a column. And then look at how row just popped up. Like I wasn't even saying row. I ain't even point you out and you still coming up? Man. Row knew what row was doing. We have columns here, we have rows. And I want you to see how this layout is. Look at this grid. This is where we're getting our grids here. I can do a three columns here. And the same thing, I can do 3 columns here. See that? They are even Stevens. And my last name is Stevens. We have our columns and our row. Again, they're the same thing, but they're just called something different. And this is where you would add content in, such as maybe I would add advanced text here. Maybe I would add an image here. Let me go here. Maybe I would add an icon list here. Excuse me. And what I want you to see is when it comes to columns, yeah, let me click this column here. Okay, let me click the list view so I can click the whole thing. Boom. Here are our settings for our columns. And what I like about columns is you can easily increase or decrease your columns. I can go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and I can have stack on mobile. That's a really good feature that WordPress brought into columns to their core block. I can change text background, you know, the normal, regular stuff. We don't got to go over that. But for the row layout, this is where things get funky. I mean, funky right here. Just like with the WordPress core block, I can increase my columns. I can change out the layout here. And this is what's really cool. I can do a vertical layout. That's awesome. I got column gutter. I got content max width, inherit the max width, divider, bottom divider. I mean, again, it just goes on and on and on. I can do the gradients. Now I can finally hit to the gradient because I couldn't do that before because my stopper was in the way. And then we have background overlay settings. We have border settings, etc., etc. So this, you get a lot of settings when it comes to columns. And even this, I mean, look at this. A visual way that you have where you don't have to do padding and margin anymore as much. You can do it kind of automatically, right? You don't have to dial it in. I really like this. I like this a lot. I like it a lot. And that's columns and row layout. Now let's check out the next one, which is section. So we have row and section. So we have a row here, right? And then let's type in section. All right. So we have row and section. Click my list view so I can see. Row view is right here and section is here. Now rows usually go inside of columns and sections go inside of a row layout, right? So these could be sections here. And it's one of those things where I don't want to get too deep into whether or not you should use a column or a row or a section. I mean, excuse me, a row layout versus a section. But I would definitely say for the most part, you're usually going to use rows for your, we'll say most of your content, like your big buckets, right? Your big buckets. And then sections are going to be sub buckets within your big buckets because there's certain things you can do with sections that you can't do with the row layout and vice versa. So let me actually move this closer to here. So that way you can visually see how these two typically pair together and these two typically pair together. And you can actually add section inside of the row. See how rows are made up of sections, right? So they're like mini rows. You know what I mean? Like miniature rows. But I definitely wanted you to see that. And then you have settings for certain rows, which is really, really, really cool. And what I like about this, because there's sometimes, now let me give you a strategic way of thinking about this. And this is just I'm just giving you a little bit of that tip juice right here, right? She only want me for my tip juice. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of that tip juice. If you're trying to create content that you don't want to be seen within content that you do want to be seen, and you're using something like an advanced block, you're using something like cadence blocks, you could have content in here such as an advanced image, right? I think I clicked advanced text. I thought it said advanced image. And then you can say, hey, I want this row to be invisible. So I want to hide this on desktop and tablet, but I only show it on mobile, or vice versa. I want to hide it on mobile and show it on desktop and tablet, right? And it won't affect the entire row. It'll only affect that section in the row. Now I'm telling you, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna do some future videos, I'm gonna dive deeper and explain these, or I'm gonna have some help explaining more about these, because I just don't like to go too far outside of my realm of expertise. It's just not my cup of tea. I was gonna say cup of tea, my cup of tea. Ain't my cup of tea. But I did want you to see the difference, that when you are using the row layout, it's made up of sections, and these sections are like miniature rows, and then you have more options within each row that you can fine tune, get a little bit more granular within that row. But then when you want to move this row, right, like this row, some people call this section at that point, you know, it's one of those weird things where this is called that, that's called this, it's the same thing, but it's not. And then you can move this. So say you want to move a row somewhere else, but you don't want this content within the row to get messed up. You want it to move with the row. That's when you just move the row itself. And that, my friends, is what I would say is some of the basic differences of using the WordPress core blocks, which I call basic blocks, and advanced blocks, which are third-party block-based plugins. So I hope this has been great for you. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below, and don't forget to like this video. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notifications so you get notified when we release new videos.